Welcome back. Tonight, find a comfortable place to rest. Let your shoulders soften. Let the day begin to fade. Tonight we travel softly to old Japan, to quiet villages tucked between mountains and sea, where lanterns glow in the evening mist and snow falls in slow silver feathers. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out slowly. Let your eyes grow heavy. Our first tale is the story of the crane wife. Long ago, in a small wooden village at the edge of a wide cedar forest, there lived a poor weaver named Osamu. The winter had been long that year, and the snow lay deep across the rice fields. One evening, as the light was fading, Osamu walked home along a narrow path through the bamboo, his hands tucked inside his thin coat, his breath a soft white cloud in the cold air. The world was very quiet. Only the distant hush of the wind through the bamboo and the soft creak of snow under his straw sandals. At a bend in the path, near a small frozen stream, Osamu stopped. There in the snow was a great white crane, caught in a hunter's snare. Its long, black-tipped wings were folded close to its body. Its dark eyes were calm. It did not struggle. It only watched him, as if it had been waiting. Very gently, Osamu knelt in the snow and worked at the snare with his cold fingers. He spoke softly to the crane, the way one might speak to a sleeping child. After a long, slow moment, the cord came loose. The crane stretched its great wings, lifted them once, twice, and rose into the dim evening sky. It circled above him one time, and then drifted away over the cedar trees, until it was only a small, pale shape against the snow clouds. Osamu returned to his small wooden cottage. He stirred the embers in the iron brazier. He boiled a little rice and ate it slowly, listening to the wind move through the eaves. He thought about the crane for a long time. Then he wrapped himself in his thin quilt and let sleep find him, deep and warm, as the snow continued to fall against the paper screens of his window. Some nights later, there came a soft knock at his door. Osamu was surprised. No one traveled in such heavy snow. He opened the door and found, standing on his small wooden step, a young woman in a pale gray kimono. Snow lay lightly on her shoulders and in her dark hair. Her eyes were calm and very deep. She said with a soft voice that she had been walking a long way and asked if she might rest beside his fire. "Of course," said Osamu, and he let her in. The woman stayed. The snow kept falling, and after some days she did not leave. She was gentle and very quiet. She helped him sweep the wooden floor and tend the brazier and prepare their simple meals. After a quiet week, she said softly that she could weave, and she asked Osamu for thread and silk and a small room of her own where she might work undisturbed. "Promise me," she said, "that you will never look inside while I am at the loom." Osamu promised. He gave her the little back room behind a paper screen, and there she began to weave. For 3 slow days, the cottage was filled with the gentle hush of the loom. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, the woman came out, carrying in her arms a bolt of cloth so soft, so silvery, so finely woven, that it seemed to shimmer in the dim light like a stretch of new snow. Osamu had never seen anything so beautiful. He took it to the village market, and a wealthy merchant bought it at once for a heavy purse of silver. With the silver, Osamu bought rice and tea and warm cloth and oil for the lamps. The little cottage glowed. The woman wove again and again, 3 more bolts of the strange, shining cloth. With each bolt, Osamu grew a little wealthier, and the cottage grew a little warmer. But each time, the woman seemed a little thinner, a little quieter, as though the weaving was drawing something gentle out of her. One evening, Osamu sat by the brazier and listened and wondered. What was this loom that made such impossible cloth? What was she doing in there? The hush of the loom continued. Osamu told himself he would only peek for a moment, only a moment to see. He stood. He walked very softly toward the paper screen. He slid it open, just a finger's width. And there, in the dim back room, he saw not a young woman, but a great white crane, her long black-tipped wings outstretched, plucking the soft feathers from her own breast and weaving them, one by one, into the shimmering cloth on the loom. Osamu's heart caught in his chest. He stepped back very quietly. He closed the screen. He sat by the brazier and he understood, with a slow, gentle ache, that the woman in the gray kimono was the crane he had freed from the snare in the snow. He waited. He said nothing. The next morning, the woman came out of the back room. She set a final bolt of cloth, the most beautiful of them all, gently into his hands. She looked at him with her deep, calm eyes. She said softly, "You have seen. I cannot stay any longer." She walked to the door. She bowed once. Then she stepped out into the morning, and as Osamu watched, she lifted into the cold air on great white wings and rose into the pale sky and drifted away over the cedar trees until she was only a small white shape against the clouds. Osamu stood for a long time in his doorway. The snow had stopped. The world was very still, and he kept for the rest of his life that last shining bolt of cloth folded carefully in a wooden chest, and he thought of her every winter when the snow began to fall and the lanterns of the village glowed softly in the dusk. Our second tale is the story of the bamboo cutter. In a quiet province long ago, there lived an old bamboo cutter named Taketori and his wife. They had no children, and they lived simply in a small thatched house at the edge of a great bamboo grove. Each morning before the sun was fully up, Taketori would walk into the grove with his small curved knife and his bundle of cord, and he would cut the tall green bamboo and carry it home, and weave it into baskets and brooms and small flutes for the children of the village. The work was slow. The work was peaceful. He liked the sound of the bamboo, the way the long stalks swayed and clicked softly in the morning wind. One quiet evening, as the sun was beginning to set, Taketori was walking deeper than usual into the grove when he saw something strange. One of the tall bamboo stalks was glowing. A soft, pale light, like moonlight, came from deep inside its green shaft. He stood very still. He listened. He thought perhaps he was tired. Perhaps his old eyes were playing a trick on him. But the glow remained. Slowly, very gently, he knelt down and cut the bamboo stalk near its base. The light grew softer and warmer in his hands. He laid the stalk on the cool earth and opened it. Inside, curled like a small white seed, was a tiny girl, no taller than his thumb. She was sleeping peacefully. Her hair was very black. Her face was very calm. She gave off the same soft moonlight as the bamboo. Taketori sat back in wonder. Then he wrapped her very carefully in a fold of his coat and carried her home to his wife. The old couple had no children, and so they took the tiny girl and they called her Kaguya, which means shining light. From that night, their small thatched house was filled with a soft, warm glow. Kaguya grew, in a way none of them quite understood, very quickly. By the spring, she was the size of a small child. By the autumn, she was a young woman of great quiet beauty. Her face shone like the moon. Her voice was very soft. And whenever Taketori went into the grove to cut bamboo, again and again he would find inside the stalks, not light, but small, bright pieces of gold. And so the old couple who had been so poor now had everything they needed. Word spread. Princes came from distant provinces, and emperors sent their messengers, all of them asking for the hand of the beautiful Kaguya. But she would only smile gently and shake her head and say, "My dear princes, I cannot stay." Each spring she seemed a little quieter. Each autumn she seemed a little farther away. And on certain nights, when the moon was full and high over the bamboo, the old couple would find her standing in the garden, very still, looking up, with tears moving quietly down her face. One soft evening in late autumn, Kaguya called the old couple to her. She said, gently, that she had come from the moon. She said that her people had sent her here to live as a human child for a short time, and that now they had come to bring her home. The old couple wept and held her and begged her to stay, but she only kissed their old foreheads and walked slowly into the garden. From the dark sky above the bamboo, a slow, soft river of moonlight came down, and the figures of the moon people, in pale silver robes, descended on a glowing path. Kaguya stepped onto the path. She looked back once. Then she rose very slowly into the cool autumn sky, and the old couple stood in the garden, holding each other, watching her grow smaller and smaller until she was only a soft, bright point of light, returning at last to the moon. The bamboo stalks swayed in the night breeze, and from that day on full moon nights, the old couple would sit in the garden together and look up and feel her quietly watching them. Our third tale is the story of Urashima Tarō. In a small fishing village by a quiet bay, where wooden boats rocked softly on the tide and gulls drifted in slow circles, there lived a young fisherman named Taro. He was kind. He was gentle. He lived with his mother in a small wooden house, and each morning he walked down to the shore with his nets and his small boat, and he went out into the calm green sea. One soft summer afternoon, as Taro was walking back along the beach, he saw a small group of village children. They were laughing and shouting, and they were throwing stones at a small green turtle they had found upon the sand. Taro walked over very calmly. He spoke softly to the children. He gave them the small string of fish from his net. "Take these," he said gently, "and let the turtle be." The children took the fish and ran off, laughing. Taro knelt by the turtle and very carefully lifted it up and walked down to the soft edge of the sea and set it back gently into the water. The turtle floated for a moment, looked at him with calm, dark eyes, and slipped under the green waves. A few days later, Taro was out in his small boat, fishing in deeper water, when the great turtle rose beside him. It was much, much larger than before. Its shell was the color of dark jade, and the bright sun made small dancing stars upon its back. "Taro," said the turtle in a soft voice, "the dragon king of the sea wishes to thank you for your kindness. Climb upon my shell. I will take you to his palace beneath the waves." Taro, who was a gentle and curious soul, did as he was asked. He climbed onto the wide green shell. The turtle slipped, very gently, beneath the surface of the calm sea, and down they went, very slowly, into a soft underwater world of pale coral and slow drifting silverfish and quiet gardens of swaying seagrass. At the heart of it stood a great pearl palace, glowing softly in the deep green light. Taro and the turtle entered. Inside there were long halls of mother of pearl and quiet servants in robes of foam, and at the end of it all, the princess of the sea, Otohime, in a long flowing gown of pale silver and blue. She welcomed him with a soft, gentle smile. He stayed in the dragon palace for what seemed like a few peaceful days. There were quiet feasts and slow dances of sea creatures and quiet gardens of glowing coral. The light beneath the sea was very soft. The hours moved like slow water. Taro was very happy, but after a time he began to miss his old mother and the warm wooden house on the shore. He told the princess. She smiled gently, and her eyes grew a little sad. She gave him a small lacquered box tied with a soft silk cord. "Take this," she said. "It is a gift to keep you safe. But promise me, Taro, you must never open it." He promised. The great turtle carried him slowly, slowly back up through the deep green water and set him gently upon the shore of his old village bay. But when Taro walked up the path, he did not know it. The wooden houses were not the houses he remembered. The faces were not the faces he knew. He stopped an old man on the path and asked after his mother. The old man frowned. "I have not heard that name," he said, "since I was a small child. 300 years have passed in your village while you were beneath the sea." Taro stood very still upon the shore. He looked at the small lacquered box in his hands. And in his sorrow, very gently, he untied the silk cord. He lifted the lid. A soft, warm cloud of pale smoke rose, very slowly, from the box, and drifted into the evening air. And as it drifted, Taro felt the long years find him at last, very gently. He sat down softly upon the warm sand. He looked out at the calm green sea, and he let his eyes grow heavy. Far out beneath the waves, the dragon palace glowed softly on in the deep. That is enough for tonight. Let the story settle softly into your mind, like snow on a dark cedar branch. Let your breath move slowly, in and out. The lanterns are dimming. The night is very kind. Sleep gently, sleep deeply, and we will meet again on another quiet evening with another quiet tale. Good night.